from Constantinople, and the church became a mosque. The beautiful mosaics that once covered the walls were plastered over, but it became a mosque, and Muslim symbols were added, like big round circles with writing on them on the pillars. When it was the Hagia Sophia became a museum in 1934, the mosaics were once again restored. Recently, within the last 2 years, it's opened again as a mosque. When we visited the Hagia Sophia, it was a museum, and we could see the beautiful mosaics that had been restored. We also saw that there were upper galleries reached by very wide ramps, wide enough for a horse pulling in a chariot to bring important people up to the galleries. This is where the emperors would worship. Light streamed through the many windows, casting shadows and giving a beautiful feeling to the building. It was a beautiful building dedicated to holy wisdom, a treasure. But there's also a treasure found in our readings today called wisdom. In the first lesson from 1 Kings, we look at the story of Solomon the king. He was the son of King David and Bathsheba. He is known basically for two things, his wisdom and the building of the temple in Jerusalem. When he became king, he asked God for wisdom and a discerning mind. They were given to him and much more. There's a story about how he judged between two women, both who claimed a baby as their own. He was able to discern who the true mother was. As to the building of the temple, Solomon's father David was not allowed by God to build a house for his name in Jerusalem, so Solomon took up the task. Solomon's actions as king take up much space in the historical books of the Bible, but we will only look at him on Sunday morning this week and next. Much more time will be spent on the book of Proverbs, which Solomon is said to have written, but most likely he might have only written part of it. However, Proverbs does begin with a definition of wisdom that would be interesting to look at, since wisdom is associated with him. It says, the Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel, for learning about wisdom and instruction, for understanding words of insight, for gaining instructions in wise dealing, righteousness, justice, and equity, to teach shrewdness to the simple, knowledge and prudence to the young. Let the wise also hear and gain in learning, and discerning acquire skill. To understand a proverb and a figure, the words of the wise and the riddles. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instructions. This is echoed today in the Psalm 111, which was assigned as part of our readings, but we heard the beautiful canticle instead. And verse 10 of Psalm 111 says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Those who act accordingly have good understanding. His praise endures forever. In the second reading, we heard about the Christians in Ephesus who are exhorted or encouraged to live as wise people. They are given do's and don'ts. The do's are understand what the will of God is, to sing and make melody to the Lord in their hearts, and always give thanks to the Lord. The don'ts are equally simple. Don't be foolish and don't get drunk. It makes it sound like it's so easy to do. Turning to today's lesson from the Gospel of John, we hear a continuation of the teachings of Jesus as the bread of life, which we heard in the 2 previous weeks also. These are hard teachings for the people to hear. They begin to argue among themselves, saying, how can this man give us flesh to eat? They are taking his words literally. Perhaps they are thinking this is cannibalism. They are appalled at what they have heard, and many turn away from Jesus at this time. But Jesus is not talking about cannibalism. He's talking about the bread that comes from heaven. In the days of Exodus and wandering in the desert, the people were fed manna, which was bread that came down from heaven. They ate it until they came into the promised land. Now Jesus is proclaiming another bread from heaven. That is Jesus himself. They are at least perplexed when they hear it. These people heard it for the first time then. It's not like us who've had 2,000 years of liturgy and other Christian thought, wisdom, and practice to help us discern what Jesus is talking about. They have only what they just heard. I believe Jesus is talking about the food of spiritual life, which will help us grow into the persons we are called to be, which is also called authentic life. He wants his followers, including us, to have the wisdom to discern what he is teaching them. I believe that Jesus is offering an invitation or opening a door for us for wisdom. We can have knowledge, but still not have wisdom. We can have experiences, but not have wisdom. We can have riches, but not have wisdom. Jesus is offering us a gift. However, we need to discern this gift. We need to be insightful, perceptive, and understanding to accept it. We need to say yes to what Jesus is offering us. The gift Jesus is offering is a gift of himself, his body and blood, so that we might live in service to others as he did. What will be our answer to him? Will we accept his invitation or turn away as so many others have done? In closing, I want to praise some words using hymn 594 in our hymnal as a basis for it. Let us pray. God of grace and God of glory, on your people pour your power. Grant us wisdom, grant us courage for the facing of this hour. From our fears that long have bound us, free our hearts to faith and praise. Grant us wisdom, grant us courage for the living of these days. Cure thy children's warring madness, bend our pride to your control. Grant us wisdom, grant us courage, lest we miss your kingdom's goal. Save us from weak resignation to the evils we deplore. Grant us wisdom, grant us courage, serving him who we adore. Amen.